See, the people, they say I'm a notorious, and I don't want to be a notorious, and I don't want my children to be notorious or gangsters, you understand, and other people.
Notorious gang boss Erniest Solomon is being buried this morning. Solomon was shot dead while driving in Boksburg last month.
It's the 20th of November, 2020. Erniest Solomon is driving in Boksburg. Next to him is his right-hand man holding his daughter's child in the front passenger seat. At the back is his 24-year-old daughter and another man. Solomon seems to be uncertain on the wheel as he keeps checking his view mirror. Every time he looks at the mirror, he's met with the same Ford Ranger tailing his car from behind. This leaves the man with conflicting thoughts, but he is trying so hard not to show his daughter his uneasiness. They come to a slowdown in traffic, and the daughter asks his father if they will be arriving anytime soon. The man is about to answer, but before he can say a word, the Ford Ranger suddenly speeds ahead of the BMW, cutting it off in the process. Two men carrying semi-automatic weapons come out of the vehicle. The Don takes one last look at his daughter with worrying eyes, and what happened next is beyond shocking. This is the story of the hit that took out one of the biggest gang lords in South Africa. To understand how the gang boss came face to face with death, we have to go back in time. Solomon first encounters gang life as an adolescent. He is in and out of jail, and he eventually gets entangled with the Numbers gang, specifically the 28s. He then starts his own subgroup of the 28s called the Terrible Joesters. They start to demand protection fees in their local area. Every business is forced to pay a monthly fee to the Joesters, or they would be forced to close shop. But Solomon's has greater ambitions, and he knows that there is no way he can take over the Cape underworld merely on protection fees. The man needed to up his game. You see, Cape Town has a highly sought-after luxury seafood called abalone. The expensive food is gold in the Asian markets, mostly in China. Solomon knows about this market, and he is quick to get Chinese gangs connections. They strike a deal where the Chinese would provide ingredients and means to create highly sought-after drugs in the Cape, and they get abalone in exchange. For this to work swiftly, Solomon knows that he needs to get the abalone from the source. The man identifies Houston, a small fishing village in the Western Cape, as his base of operations. He takes over the small town's fishing industry with violence and intimidation. Every fisherman is now forced to pay a small percentage for every abalone they catch. He is now the authority in Houston, and no other gang is allowed to come anywhere near the town. But whenever there is money to be made, Cape gangs are bound to do everything in their power to get access. A reality Solomon was about to face in the near future. The trade of abalone in exchange for the ingredients for making sophisticated drugs not only makes Solomon rich, but also powerful in the Cape underworld and beyond. He now starts to associate with some of the most powerful gang lords in the Cape, including Cyril Bika, Rashid Staggy, and the Boysen brothers. But right as their empires begin to flourish, they start to clash with the anti-gang organization called PAGAD. You see, the gangs had pushed the civilians beyond their limits, and the people decided to protest for the government to intervene. This went on for some time until they realized the incompetence of their leaders. They then decided to take matters into their own hands, forming organizations like PAGAD to try and face gangsterism head-on. Erniest Solomon starts to realize the dangers of these conflicts, and he quickly consults his peers to create their own organization called the Corps. This organization was framed as a means to create peace in the communities, but the gang lords only wanted to give a positive perception to their underworld activities. This works for a while for Solomon, as he now has less pressure from the anti-gang groups, leading to his empire flourishing under the radar. He now dominates the abalone scene, the extortion networks, and the club security scene with Cyril Bika. But their reign does not last long. Cape Town gang competition is one of the most fierce on the planet. Rival gangs are now laser-focused on taking out the top kingpins, and it does not take long for the first domino to fall. It's now the 21st of March, 2001. Cyril Bika is inside his silver BMW driving in the Belleville area with one of his associates. The man looks at his watch as they enter Motterdam Road in Belleville South. The clock is exactly 5 p.m. They come to a stop just after the entrance to the University of Western Cape, and at that very moment, a motorcycle stops right next to their vehicle. The three men inside the vehicle can feel the tension, but before they can react, the man on the back seat of the bike opens fire, shooting through the gang boss's vehicle. All three men are hit and the driver loses control of the vehicle, going straight into the university fence. Cyril Bika does not survive the hit, and with this, the first steps towards the end of Erniest Solomon had just been taken. You see, the death of Cyril Bika is not only personal for the 28th gang boss, but it also leads to a hostile takeover by rival gangs, mostly in the nightclub security scene. This meant less power for Erniest Solomon, and the gang boss now made it his mission to take down the person who took out Bika. Solomon gets a tip-off on the trigger man through his gang connections, and the man is Leon Davids, a hitman for the rival gang called the Sexy Boys. The 28th gang boss picks up his phone and rings his junior, Horatio Solomon. Horatio is seen as the heir to the throne, the leader of the new generation of the terrible josters. His uncle is the Don, and the nephew wastes no time contacting his most trusted hitman. Leon Davids is at his home in Belhar. He is enjoying the weekend barbecuing in the yard of his house under a shade. He notices a man peeping on the small spaces of his gate. This unsettles him for a second, but he dismisses it as a random encounter as the peeping fella goes through his trash bin right by the gate. Davids continues with his festivities, but unbeknown to him, that random encounter was not random after all. Horatio receives a call from Belhar confirming the location of his target. 3 men are sent, and within an hour, the junior boss's phone rings again. He smiles as he listens to the call. Leon Davis had just been caught lacking, and 5 shots had sent the hitman to his maker. The news is passed on to Erniest Solomon, and the 28th gang boss is more than pleased by this. But another storm was now brewing under the surface. The hit elevates Horatio's status, and the young junior boss has no plans to stay junior. He now starts to go against some of the traditional ways of the gang, and this leads to him breaking out and forming his own function of the new terrible josters based in Delft, Westbank, Elsie's River, and Kleinmond. This does not go well with the senior, and things are bound to get ugly really quickly. It's now the 15th of March, 2020. Horatio Solomon is approaching his home in Durbanville Hills inside a Ford Ranger. Next to him is his 13-year-old daughter. The small girl smiles at his father as they approach the driveway. Right as they stop, another vehicle suddenly stops behind, and everything goes dark for the junior boss. Inside the house, Horatio's father is eagerly waiting to hear the excited voice of his granddaughter, but all he hears outside are thundering gunshots. 21 to be exact. The old man drops everything and rushes to the driveway. He finds Horatio with a bullet wound to the head. The man is still breathing, but the daughter who was shot in the chest is not so lucky. Horatio Solomon survives the hit, but the death of his daughter takes the internal war within the josters to a whole new level. It's now the 11th of May, 2020, just 2 months after the death of Horatio's daughter. Erniest Solomon is at the Club Octopus in Houston. Next to him is his son Carlo and his right-hand man Jonathan Thomas. A man suddenly storms the place with a rifle, hitting Solomon, Carlo, and Thomas. The father and the son survive the attempted hit, but the right-hand man succumbs to his injuries. The war within the family has now reached a point of no return, and it's just a matter of time before the Reaper comes to collect. It's now the 20th of November, 2020. Erniest Solomon is driving in Boksburg. He is accompanied by his daughter, his daughter's young child, and an associate. The man starts to notice a vehicle following his every turn, and this starts to unsettle the kingpin. He knows the BMW they are currently in is bulletproof, but the only vulnerability is at the top of the vehicle. They come to a slowdown in traffic, and before the man can react, the vehicle suddenly speeds forward and cut them off. Men with automatic rifles exit the car, and they shower the BMW with bullets. One of the group goes on top of the vehicle and fires directly through the only vulnerable place on the armored car. Erniest Solomon is hit up to 30 times. Another gunman moves towards the daughter and shoots her on the face. Solomon and the associate does not survive the hit, but the daughter manages to pull through. The story of the feared 28th gang boss ends in the most brutal way possible.
Funeral service is over, but right now in the Tusong Hall, what is taking place is a traditional Khoi ritual. So members that were part of Erniest Solomon's clan, they are now basically paying tribute to him. There was a small ceremony leading up to those tributes where they placed their staffs at the foot of the casket. So that is taking place right now. We heard from Solomon's son, Vito, a touching tribute to his father, speaking about the type of man that his father was, speaking about the fact that his father had tried to protect his family to the best of his ability, especially after the shooting in May, in which Solomon was wounded in a shooting. And after that, Solomon had moved to Johannesburg. As you know, on the 20th of November, that shooting had taken place.